Oh boy. I've beaten Mortal Sin's final boss a few times now, but I keep coming back. I keep thinking, just one more run, try one more class, get one more swing of that huge greatsword. Just one more run. Mortal Sin is a roguelike with a strong focus on melee combat. It's still in early access on Steam, and its solo creator Nikola Todorovic has been incredibly active and transparent throughout the development. The game is brutally challenging, and features one of the best art style I've seen in recent years. Every screenshot looks like a cover for a metal album. It's also the kind of game that no video can fully do justice. You have to play it for yourself to appreciate just how incredible it looks in motion. There's not much story in Mortal Sin. You play as the Struggler, a lone figure who wakes up in a ruined graveyard, seemingly a victim of a wish gone horribly wrong. You have one goal: hack and slash through hordes of enemies, confront the maw of sin, and escape this endless hellscape. I have to start with the visuals here because they are incredible. Everything has this grungy and heavy metal look to it. While it looks busy, the important stuff like traps and enemies are highlighted in bright colors to help them stand out from the background. You can also customize the visuals, selecting different color schemes and reducing some of the busier elements to your liking. Next, let's get into the gameplay. Mortal Sin is all about melee combat. Even the Mage class uses his staff to beat enemies into the ground. The game has a short optional tutorial at the start where you learn the basics, but most of what you need to know comes naturally as you play. You got normal and heavy attacks, dashes, blocks, parries and kicks. The game also encourages you to use the environment to deal with enemies more efficiently, pushing them into traps and pits that are scattered around the level. It reminds me a lot of Dark Messiah, but with its combat turned up to 11. There is a huge variety of weapons in the game, and more unlock as you progress. You got long swords, axes, katanas and spears and so on, but I have to give a special shout out to the greatsword. It's basically a massive chunk of metal on a stick, and it absolutely obliterates enemies once you get the hang of it. You start each run by picking a class, each focusing on a specific weapon type and equipped with its own unique active ability. You then decide which of Mortal Sin's 3 levels you're gonna tackle first. To beat the game, you need to complete all 3 levels in a single run. The order doesn't matter, but each level gets progressively harder. Your journey is tracked on the progress screen, and you'll unlock different rewards depending on the order you tackle the levels in. This encourages you to mix things up and experiment until you've unlocked everything. There's also an optional arena that becomes available after beating the first level. It offers great rewards, but with serious risks. Also, if you want to see the game's secret ending, you need to finish this arena 3 times in one run. Beating the final boss unlocks a hard mode. In it, enemies deal more damage and all the items and everything is more expensive. While running through a level, you'll find loot. Everything from weapons to different types of armor. These can boost your stats or give you buffs, like making your kick shoot fireballs or granting invincibility while dashing. All the items also have durability. The more you use them, or the more their buffs are triggered, the faster their durability drops. You'll need to keep an eye on them and drink a repair potion to keep your gear functional. Let's move on to combat. I cannot stress enough how satisfying the combat feels and how naturally you learn it by playing the game. When I first started, I played cautiously, slowly taking down enemies one at a time. But a few hours later, I was plowing through roomfuls of enemies, absolutely obliterating them. As you progress, you unlock combos. These are simple button presses that chain attacks with dashes and kicks, but they are crucial for leveling up your gameplay. To finish the game, you need to master combos and parries. Thankfully, you can pin them to the screen to make them easier to pull off. It won't be long before you too are clearing screenfuls of enemies in an instant, chaining combos, landing perfect parries and switching weapons on the fly. Like I mentioned earlier, the art style does a great job of making enemies stand out against the background. Clear indicators and sharp sound effects also help you track their actions and attacks. While the variety of enemies isn't huge, most of them are unique enough to keep things interesting. Almost every enemy can be dismembered by targeting their limbs. Crippling tougher enemies like bosses by taking off their arms or legs can make them much easier to handle. The sound design in the game is also top-notch. The music seamlessly shifts from calm and atmospheric during exploration to intense heavy metal in combat. The music combined with the satisfying crunch of enemies when you hit them and the over-the-top visuals make the game just feel awesome to play. I do have a few criticisms though. There are some bugs, and the lack of enemy variety gets repetitive after a while. Bigger enemies can also be frustrating to fight, with animations that are hard to track. Poison pools on the floor are tough to see and sometimes feel unfair. The final boss is also a real pain to deal with and, in my opinion, pretty unsatisfying to fight. He's massive and you can barely see what's going on because he just takes up the whole screen. But honestly, it's hard to fault the game too much. It's made by one person, and everything else feels polished and fun. So moving on to the conclusion. Mortal Sin isn't a perfect game, but it doesn't need to be. Its brutal combat, incredible art style and satisfying gameplay loop make it stand out. Especially considering it's all the work of a single developer. If you want a roguelike that does not break the bank or are just looking for something unique and challenging, I'd highly recommend giving it a shot. It's not for everyone, but if it clicks for you, it's an experience you won't forget. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.